Welcome back, PIC.
PIC? What's that?
Partner in crime.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
I've heard of partner in crime, but not PIC.
Yeah, you're my PIC.
That's right. Did you miss me?
You were missed, yeah.
Yeah? Really? Or are you just saying that to be nice?
No.
Okay.
I'll take a polygraph.
I'll take a polygraph.
For sure.
You think you could beat a polygraph?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
I guess, I mean, there's different ways you can like throw it off with fidgeting and stuff, don't they say? Like there's all kinds of things to make it sort of null and void or whatever.
Yeah, you have to really practice to be good at, you have to be really dead, be able to deaden.
Dead inside.
Yeah,
oh,
dead
you'd be
inside.
perfect.
Naturally gifted in being dead inside.
But how do they know if someone's lying versus they're just nervous or anxious?
Well, that if you make it so that it's inconclusive, meaning that you can't tell, you basically make the readings high highs and low lows, means that okay, they can distinctly tell. But if you shorten those high highs by putting maneuvers like increase your breathing for no reason, or tap your foot for no reason, or create brain activity, it registers on what they're monitoring, and then they can't distinguish between the question that they asked you and your body's response to it if it's doing all kind of wacky stuff.
Doesn't sound like a very thorough way to.
Yeah, there's probably going to be
way.
better technologies, and so so AI comes in, you have sensors that monitor things. I mean, your biometrics could very easily add to the data that can be collected, and so there's going to be a point where lying is just not going to be possible. So which industries, which things do you think change the most when lying's not a deal? Remember Liar Liar?
Yeah.
An attorney, and he couldn't lie, and couldn't do his job because he knew an untruth and whatever.
Yeah.
I look forward to that day where I watch every one of those lying assholes in the federal buildings not be able to do their job anymore because all they did was lie day in and day out. It would be great.
You ever see like in a movie when they inject someone with like truth serum?
Yeah.
Do you think we have anything actually
Sodium pentothal? They actually do. Yeah.
Like, how does that work?
I
can't imagine there's something you can actually inject in someone and they really can't lie.
This is a Googleable thing.
Yeah.
Sodium
pentothal. Here comes the government after you.
How does it work?
How does it work?
All right, yeah, I come through.
Central nervous system depressants. Increased inhibitory effects. Oh. I could see that. It lowers your inhibitions. Is that it? Like alcohol does?
But I think with an order of magnitude higher. I'm not going to read all this, but let's just say
mind-altering drug.
Let's just say it does alter how your brain functions, and it lowers the barriers on being able to concoct an untruth, and so you're more likely to say a truth, just like alcohol.
Do you believe so? With alcohol lowers your inhibitions. A lot of people find themselves acting a certain way, maybe saying things they wouldn't have said if they were sober. But there's this expression that's like a drunk man speaks a sober man's thoughts. Do you believe that?
Yes, I do.
Because I feel like I used to believe that. And then I have seen myself say things while drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And when I sober up, I go, what? No, I don't think that. Or no, I don't. Like, I don't really know why I would have said it. I'll do things that like, I'm just like, that was dumb. Like, I don't feel that way. I think it's not that I'm in another mindset. Acting on that mindset doesn't mean it's the truth. It's still just another false thing.
Okay.
You don't think so?
No, I mean, I think you got a lot going on in the subconscious, and when you craft your personality and how you interact with people, it's all crafted. It's how you want to be rather than how you are. And so you lower inhibitions, and part of your subconscious that is real, it's still your brain. You got some filters in there, and you got some, stuff going on, but there are real thoughts. Like you ever put yourself in a position and said, if you want, you don't want to be a murderer today, right? Well, maybe you do, but let's just say you don't want to be a murderer today. So you would, you would sort of orient yourself so that you weren't a murderer. But there's a murderer inside you. There's a thief inside you. There's all of that that's possible. It's a potential.
Yeah.
And all you would have to do is lower, your counters to not being a murderer. And once they're removed, then you become slightly more murderous. And that's what it is. You can invoke those sides of you.
I mean, there's been times where I used alcohol to make me feel better about something, like if I had to address a large group of people, get up on stage and do something, like I might have a drink and I'm not nervous anymore.
Yeah.
Like I can still function, but I don't have the nerves that I did without that alcohol. I'm still, I don't know, still saying the same thing. I'm not going to I don't know. Patricia says, truth tellers, little kids and drunk people.
Yeah, that's true.
You've never said something drunk and then sobered up and be like, I really did not mean that.
No, I really have not.
I have.
Yeah.
I remember.
It's in there. That's a rebellious spirit.
No, this is terrible.
No,
this is terrible. I was many years ago, I was dating a guy and we were sort of recently started dating, and it was very much one of those, he was a very nice guy. He was very sweet. We hung out and had a good time, but I wasn't really into him. I wasn't very attracted to him, but I was like, all right, we'll go out. We'll see where this goes. And I remember after many drinks one night, I don't even know how it came up. I think I said, I love you or something to him. And I didn't mean that. I didn't. And I felt bad because it kind of I think he wanted to. He liked me more than I liked him. And then shortly after that, I sort of ended things and I was like, look, this just isn't, I'm not in this, and you're really great, but I just don't feel that way about you. Then I felt like a total a-hole because he's like, just the other night you said you love me. And I wanted to be like, dude, I was so drunk. I did not mean that. It was just a nice moment. And
right.
So I don't think it's truth serum all the time. I think it's idiot serum.
No. There was a part of you that felt love in that moment, and that's
maybe
your best way to articulate
was nice.
it.
Yeah, it was a nice moment, but I don't love you.
But maybe the sophisticated love that gets tagged to that word, but it was a lower primitive form of love, and you articulated it. It was beautiful.
More like, I appreciate this time together. It's very nice.
And you called it love, and it was fine. It was truthful.
That was the wrong word for it.
Yeah. If you were engineering or strategizing things, and you would have used a better word, I really like this tender moment, would have been a better way of doing it, but because
nothing at all, maybe.
Maybe
alcohol makes it impossible to say that.
Right.
Nothing.
Right. And then, but when you're in that more primitive state, you said the thing that was more feeling, and that's the word you chose. I don't fault you for that.
I don't know. I still think there are things that can come out that are just not true.
It's true. Deep down, there was a love in that moment, and you nailed it.
Maybe.
Moving on. Moving on. What's next? What do you want to talk about today?
I don't know, Joe. I don't know. What's happening in DC?
Okay.
Called in people, National Guard. There's crime everywhere.
Joe's happy.
So apparently people are not happy, and I don't understand why.
Okay.
If there is so much crime and people are getting shot up and you can't go anywhere without some sort of violent crime happening, why would somebody not want to have protection come in?
So as part of the narrative, to make Trump into an authoritarian Nazi-like figure, this is like a gift, right? 19 seconds after let's go clean up the crime, it's he's an authoritarian, right?
Yeah.
And so I always question that nugget, when they're putting these things together. It makes sense. DC is a special territory where it's operated as a city and it's not a state. And DC politicians in DC are clamoring for statehood so they can participate in the government differently than just hosting the government. really high Democrat area. So it's sort of like a little jewel of the Democrats. So from a political standpoint, if you go in and break that up and disrupt that, like I think DC should not have any residents in it whatsoever. I think it should be treated as like a national park.
Really?
Any government stuff goes there. Anything, keep the people away. Keep mayors and councils and apartment buildings. Just keep it out. Just make it.
So keep people in to come look at.
Oh yeah,
like
state
tourists.
park. Nobody lives
But-
there. Nobody should live there.
Why?
Well, because it lacks some of the tools that a state would have to field things like crime, economic development, and whatever. So it starts to participate and do things like a state. And I don't want it to become a state. And so I'd prefer it just be a state park that does government stuff and go see the memorials and whatever. Cool. But yeah, I kick the people out.
Should the president still live there?
Oh yeah. Yeah. President should live
But
there.
the only one.
The only one. Yeah. But anyway, so the strange parts of it are that it is not the highest risk place when it comes to crime, but it is one of the few that you can dispatch, federal agents into with really no pushback.
Yeah.
Right? And so they can clean it up. And if they're modeling it where, they do certain things, get rid of the homelessness, then we can take guys at like San Francisco or Los Angeles or big cities that have huge, homelessness. How do you treat those people? And so I think the deal is that, most of us want institutions to rebirth, right? Put these people in places, rehab them, get drugs out of their system, put some opportunities ahead from them and help them graduate instead of, defecating on a sidewalk somewhere. Give them a shot, a chance, because all of those people are in bad shape now, but there's not good that's at the end of that tunnel. If you let them congregate and find, these little cities of people that are homeless. Did you see there was one up in Boardman, by the way?
No.
Yeah. So if you go outside of Walmart, right across the street from Walmart, they're right in where the trucks pull in to bring the semis bring in to drop off their pallets. There is a person that is situated right on that corner, surrounded by all of their belongings. And I mean, if you were to say, let's just say Joe wanted to go tenting and I just set it up somewhere in a lawn of a retail shop, how long would anybody tolerate that? Like 0 seconds.
Yeah.
I'd be gone, because it's illegal to put yourself on somebody else's property and to ruin it and get in the way and all of that kind of stuff. But the question is, what do you do with these people if they don't have anywhere to go? Well, and that's where our government has very few things they have to get their shit involved in. This is one of them, right?
Yeah.
To take because that's a problem, not just for the people that are in that position. It ruins everything around that. Businesses that have to be around that, people that have to be around that. So you have to, where government's not good at the empathy thing, it has the resources to be able to take people that are at the very bottom and give them a chance to bounce back from something like that.
Are there homeless shelters in and around Youngstown?
There are, yeah.
There are. I was saying, I know down south when I lived there was a couple. And I don't know if there's like stipulations or regulations as to like how long you can be at one or anything like that.
Honestly, they're done in the right spirit, where they give someone a place, some refuge, right? But it's not an institution that is geared to handle fixing you.
They're not like rehabbing and assimilating you back into anything. It's just here's shelter for the night.
It's exactly right.
Okay.
And they have rules that you're not allowed to do drug use, and we'll give you a meal and you can sleep here for whatever and line up, and we'll situate you for the evening. But when I picture someone going in with a clear problem, whether it's mental, drug use, whatever, there should be people who specialize in what breaks people to that point and induct them into a system that helps them in the way that need help.
Yeah, but in order to do that, I guess those professionals would have to be paid by the government.
Exactly.
It's not like their clientele's paying them.
But and again, this is the things that I think the government would be good at, is using government resources. We got buildings that have like, we're paying for them and they're not even occupied. We have specialists, and all these government employees, I think, are way underutilized anyway. So we probably wouldn't even have to create new positions. We did just have to use people in actual public service to help people get back up on their feet. That doesn't include, just giving them money or placating them. It would be, seeing a guy that shoplifts and finding out why he shoplifts and help fix the problem of why he's shoplifting, and take it from an engineering and a logistics standpoint.
I'm kind of thinking out loud, so I've not thought this through, but I keep thinking about when everybody made such a stink about the supposed government employees that were all losing jobs and being cut and all this stuff that Trump was doing. Could those displaced people sort of like, hey, here's another government role position?
Could, if they have a specialty that, could help those people, I'm all for it. And also the people who have, like, when we did the rehab center, most of the people that were leading and teaching were people who have gone through the program. So as part of being there, not only do you get the treatment, you help give the treatment, because I would believe someone who's been through it and trust them more than an outsider who's never lived a day on the street. So you can create an entire entire infrastructure that helps those people.
Yeah, my husband, since he retired out of the military, has been involved with the VA. And one of his providers came to him and was like, hey, why don't you think about sort of joining with us and being someone that helps other veterans? And, because you have this experience.
Right. Yeah. And we're good at
that.
Human beings are really good at charity and doing something where they can make an impact and save someone's life, potentially. So I think that would, work out. But the current government really just likes to warehouse their problems rather than work on them. They like to point that they have homeless problems. But if I would trust today's government, it would have only a couple things. Do I get any more power out of this? Is there any money in this for me? And is even working on it going to injure my, potential in politics at a certain way? All right. And so if those are the three priorities of what a politician is, no one's going to get help. They're going to take people, put them in jail cells, make them disappear when they're inconvenient. And those people are just in a different place. They're equally as broken. And now you've taken their liberties away. At least on the street, they can still do themselves, even if they're harming themselves.
Yeah.
In a jail cell, that's not any better. It's just better for you as a civilian.
Yeah. My dad told me one time years ago, this was a long time ago, he used to work in the courthouse downtown. And I think he said there was a homeless man that threw a brick through a courthouse window and smashed it so that he would get arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, what are you doing? And he's like, 3 meals a day, a bed, a roof over my head.
Mm-hmm.
Done. And I said, that would probably be my route. I might be in jail, but the other alternative is a sidewalk somewhere. Okay.
Yeah.
Especially
in, like Ohio, where it's going to get freaking cold and you're going to be out there in the elements. And I've camped short term in the cold. It is no picnic whatsoever.
Oh.
So we feel for these people, and we know government's going to, if we don't do something drastic, they're going to flub it up, and all they're going to do is hurt people, and they're not going to solve the problem. So this is sort of like a little incubator where you do it the right way in DC, and then maybe you model it that other cities that are struggling with it can do something. And then instead of California saying, you're not bringing the National Guard in here, if you do it right, maybe California invites the National Guard in the same way they cleaned up DC, because then they saw it'll never happen. Like I don't look to see politicians being reasonable in that way.
Yeah. Like didn't Gavin Newsom release something that was like, stand down and this is your last chance?
Oh, that's Texas. We'll talk about Texas next.
Oh, that was Texas that did that?
No, it was California, but it was about Texas, not DC.
Oh, because I'm just like, again, and I know Trump had even said, maybe we could bring some into New York or whatever. And I'm just like, if I lived in a state that was high in crime, why would I not want the National Guard brought in or something done.
Yeah, because you're a decent, reasonable person, and that is a that's
Yeah.
a reasonable thing to say.
And then they're like, oh, well, you're overreaching and you're trying to control everything and you're trying to this. Oh, you mean like, I don't know, making people lose their jobs and stay in their homes and you're not allowed to go anywhere and you have to shut your business down and you're not even allowed to go out to eat or to a hair salon. And if you do leave, you have to be back by a certain time. Like any of that, is that overreaching or being controlling unnecessarily? Like the hypocrisy, I always point out, the hypocrisy kills me. And I don't even I could see it sucks to not be allowed to leave my house and not feel like I have the freedom to go wherever I want and do what I want. That sucks. To simply say we have extra law enforcement presence because our town is crime ridden. Why does that doesn't seem like that sucks. I would kind of appreciate that if there were drive-bys every day or violent crime all the time and break-ins. Like, unless I'm missing something, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to, do you have the right to be homeless? Like, is that, I think, rights are something that has a bunch of responsibility that's attached to it, right? Mm-hmm. Your right ends at the tip of your nose. And so the minute that your rights start affecting other people, right, you then don't get that right, right?
Yeah.
And so if I say I'm going to go live in your front yard, right, there's a chance that you're going to be ill-affected by my choice.
Yes.
Right. And so, but the mathematics is that in order to have a place to live, you have to have money. If you don't have money, then you don't have even a chance or an opportunity. If you make housing too unaffordable, then you have a bunch of people that are like, hey, I'm totally living in a house right now, but I don't have any money. Right.
Yeah.
And then you have these people that spiraled in the opposite direction, where because they didn't have a house and they turned to drug use, now it's even less likely that they can get a job to have a house. So once you get there, it's bad. Right.
Yeah.
And that's why somebody needs to like short circuit that spiral downward, take the things away that were working against you and try to rehab you so that then you can start earning some of those freedoms back. But that's the principle. Our freedoms, do they come with strings? Is it yours by default and you only lose them if you break one of the rules of those freedoms? So they're granted to you, right? Mm-hmm. So you could make the argument that you'd have to prosecute all of the people that are homeless, so that then it's the due process of losing, being on the street, right? Losing that the freedom of making your own choices and being homeless if you want to.
I wonder if it's so difficult to help the situation because of the lack in desire in the homeless person. Like somebody could say, well, here's all these opportunities. Let's bring the homeless people in and give them these opportunities. How many of them, I wonder, are like, I can't do drugs there? Nah, I'm out.
Exactly.
I'm good. And they don't even take it. And then the place folds and.
Right. And that's why it has to be that your decision-making and your liberties have to be taken away from you once you break the rules. I don't think it's going to be a jail cell, because a jail cell is sending someone there and the punishment is losing the liberty. Well, when you're homeless, you don't have many liberties anyway, right?
Yeah.
And so I will take your liberties away as a homeless person, but they're going to be connected with, you use drugs, now you're not going to anymore. You're using restroom on the street, no. Because in a day in the life of somebody who is homeless, I bet you there are a dozen laws you break every single day.
Yeah.
And so pick them up from that, put them in the homeless institution / jail, and break those habits. And I'm sure all of them, because they've spiraled to a point, they don't ever see a life where they're not using drugs or they're not being it, because their brain's broken in a way that you need to bring them back from that and give them, like the drug rehab places do, where you're there for 6 months. A court orders it that you go there for 6 months and you live in a dorm and they search you 5 times a day. They tell you what you can eat and what we talk about and whatever. You don't really have many freedoms, but as you're in the program longer, you start getting some of those things back. Right.
Yeah.
And even those people, I've watched a guy go through 6 months of drug rehab. Right. So breaking all the dependencies, stitching a brain back together so that it works halfway normal. And they leave that place and they do all of the things that they did that ended up there. They give up all of that rehab work, and either they die, and it's the most confusing thing because you broke all the reasons. Like, it didn't have its effect. I had one kid that stopped smoking like 50 times. So he broke the habit, right? And then one day he's like, I don't really need this, but let's try that again. That expensive.
I want to see if I can stop again.
Yeah, right.
Kind of thing.
And there's some weird wiring that if I were there, I'd say, I want you to go back and I want you to reminisce on the worst parts of trying to break this thing and suggest to you that you're going to have to go through it again. Do you want to do that? Is that something? But broken brains just have a habit of revisiting all the things they say they hate.
Yeah. I mean, that's why, people say that saying, once an addict, always an addict. I kind of believe that.
I agree too.
Because, yeah, I think it's something you will always have to avoid. You will always have to work on. Now, somebody also told me once too, that those places like drug rehab facilities, those like live-in facilities, somebody's like, you get more drugs in there than on the street. Like, everybody knows that you get stuff in there. I'm like, so how do we fix that?
Right.
That can't be a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The one that we did not have that kind of economy because they were so strict on the searches where, prisons and jails, they're doing their job to keep you locked in the cage, and that economy where payoffs. My cousin worked in the prison system for many decades, and the industries that are in there, the correction officers are participating, right, and they make money based on what they allow contraband getting into those places.
Corrupt,
right? So staffing it and putting the proper people in there is equally as important to then, shaking people down and making sure that they don't have drug testing like every day. And if you show, you're out of the program. So they're super strict.
God, there's so many things to fight. Like, it's not even trying to deal with the people you're trying to serve, but then the workers doing the serving. If they become corrupt too, then what are we even? I can't even imagine how difficult
it's not an easy one, but I do think we do have the will, but it has to get so absurd before we'll buy into it. If it's just a little bit bad of a problem, we're like, we don't want to, disproportionately overreact, right? Mm-hmm. But if it's terrible, like you go outside and you get punched in the face, then you're really willing to hear that we need to solve this thing.
Yeah. Dennis says, we can't keep drugs out of prison, so good luck with a halfway house.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Which sucks.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think you get to 100% perfect procedure and process at all, especially if you get the government involved. But when you look at what is, you can make it considerably better than what's happening now. And innocent people getting carjacked and shot and businesses broken into versus somebody who's at least has a better chance of getting their shit together. I mean, that's not perfect.
I mean, if they're in a halfway house that may be compromised, is that not still better than being on the street causing crime to innocent people?
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think you totally solve the problem, but at least you protect innocent people from being part of the repercussions of it.
Yeah.
I would much rather have someone who's trained in that kind of stuff be the one that manages it rather than, me walking down the street and have to be exposed to it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Let's see. Julie says, as you tiptoe down the road to a tyrannical government that uses the military against its citizens, just remember your complacency. This isn't about crime or homelessness. This is about federal weaponization against U.S. citizens. That was already in the hopper. You know that?
I love you, Julie.
Already in the hopper.
When is it about crime and homelessness?
So, okay. All right. Listen.
When is it actually somebody's doing?
It is a fair argument, right? Because it is an upped potential. Do you trust that the Trump administration is going to get access to powers that puts them in a higher control, sort of like a layer of control, and then give it up Or do you think it's an escalation where you take one bite and you're going to want a second one, and it's going to escalate until what Julie said is an overreach of government where it's more tyrannical than it was today?
Like telling people you're not allowed to leave your homes and you have to shut your businesses and you can't go anywhere you want.
Right.
Oh, by the way, and you have to put this drug in your body.
Yes, that kind of tyrannical control.
But dealing with homelessness and crime, that's tyrannical control, but the other is not.
Either one, you have to have it's healthy to have your suspicions that we want to put pressure so that you, for the Patriot Act. Okay. So the Patriot Act, right after the terrorism of 9/11, allowed government agencies to peek into U.S. citizens' lives, right? To collect information about terrorism. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And all of us were like, yeah, let's freaking do it. We just saw airplanes hit a building. Like, we don't want that to happen again. We're willing to give you a little bit more control.
Mm-hmm.
And so that you can protect us from the bad guys in the sky. Right.
Yeah.
Do you think that as time went on, the Patriot Act was used for things that had nothing to do with terrorism?
Probably.
Do you think they took morsels of it and became too tyrannical where government agencies were then allowed to look at U.S. citizens? Okay, so it's healthy because we've seen it happen before, but in your hypocrisy vein, make sure you apply it to everyone.
Yeah,
like with the same kind of ire. I sound like a pirate. Arr.
It is interesting to see too. Like right after 9/11, anybody that boarded a plane saw how incredibly difficult airport security can be. I mean, like, shoes off, everything off, pat down, no liquids, no whatever. I flew this past weekend. It's so nice now. You know, you don't have to take your shoes off anymore.
Right. Yep.
I literally just walked right through. I was like, this is wonderful. And then I couldn't help but in the back of my mind go, but are we being less safe? Like one of these people have something in their shoe. I even have to, on one of my flights, I have to walk through the x-ray thing. I literally set my purse down. And they just said, all right, this way. And I just walked, no pat down, no nothing. I'm like, what if I do have something in my shoe?
Mm-hmm.
I got right on that plane. Nobody touched me. Nobody made me walk through anything. Maybe I went through a metal detector. I may have, now that I think about it. But
so the point is, Julie, that it's healthy to be suspicious when you see something happen because the slippery slope means that it could escalate to a certain point. And you, as the voters and citizens of the country, if you see it overstepping where we start controlling more with less justifiable, nouns and verbs, where if it's about homelessness, then you should see that problem getting better. If it's about crime, then you should see that problem getting better.
Like what's a better way? What else should we be doing for crime and homelessness then? If you're like, hey, government, they're becoming tyrants. They're overreaching. They're doing too much. All right, then we stop. What do we do now then? Do we just let it go then? Fine, just let it go. And then when do we start hearing, when's the government going to do something about this? When's the government going to help this situation? Well, sorry, you didn't like what we did to help. What do you do?
Yeah.
Julie says, Kelin, over 1 million people were dying. The dead were being put in refrigerated trucks. Hospitals were overrun. This was a situation that we had never faced before. Okay, so what's happening in D.C. and all these other places? Is everybody just hunky-dory and feeling safe and happy in their environment? Or are there people dying? Are there people being victims of crime? Like, it's not like we do something for no reason. Yes, by all means, watch it. I see what we're doing. I see why we're doing it. Let's keep an eye on this. Let's just make sure we've got some boundaries in place. We know where this is going to go. But the alternative is do nothing. You're saying there were people dying, so let's intervene. Well, there's now areas with mass crime and people dying. Don't intervene because that's what, different? Or, oh, that's right, I don't like the guy leading that charge. I don't trust him. So do nothing, right? You can hear Julie just, Kelin?
But I think that like if you were to engineer this, we'll use the Patriot Act, for instance. Did she respond?
Yeah.
I don't want to go ahead.
We give our local police forces more power to deal with their own people. We don't need the military.
But they're not. That's the kind of the point. If that were the case.
I kind of feel like they did need some help. That's why.
Yeah. And if you can obstruct and you can make it so that the mayors of these cities, because it's a blight on their leadership, they were altering statistics, by the way. I don't know if you saw this, like when the first round of news came out, when I think it was Monday that Trump said, or Sunday, he hinted that this was going to happen. And they populated every influencer with the same statistic that crime is down 30%. In why now? What's happened? Why now? Crime is down 30%. And everyone said the same statistic. Well, they have been fabricating statistics. Okay. They've been making it up and not giving the proper data to show where DC was at. I think the mayor, I'll look this one up because I want to see who it was.
Yeah.
DC statistics.
Statistics.
Fabrication. Never mind. I couldn't bring it up, but anyway, there were some statistics that were fabricated, and suspicious people like me. Anytime you read a statistic that doesn't make sense, there are really creative ways that you can make things seem better than they actually are.
My brother recently sent me a video, and I don't know who the woman is that was being interviewed. I should go back and get more details, but they were talking about COVID and the vaccine and everything, and all the statistics coming out as to why people should get this drug and everything. And she said, if you were vaccinated, if you took your series of shots, you were not considered vaccinated until 2 weeks had gone by since. So anybody that took the injections and died before 2 weeks was up was a unvaccinated death. Mm-hmm. Look at all these unvaccinated deaths. Look at all these people dying because they weren't vaccinated. They were, but they were counted as unvaxxed because they had to wait several weeks until they could just have that title.
Right.
And I'm just like, well, that's not accurate. That's not fair. That's misleading and wrong statistics and obviously spreading misinformation. But that doesn't happen, right?
I mean, your data has to be pure so people trust when you say something, that you don't have a bias in it, that you want something. So everything from global warming to COVID, economic reports, jobs, like all of that stuff have government employee statisticians, right? And the minute that you make something up or use it as a reason for an action that's meant to mislead the public, I don't trust any of your numbers because I know what you will do. So that's just my take on it.
Carter says only liberals would object to trying to make the capital of this country safer. No matter what Trump does, they will object. Thus, TDS lives on.
Oh, no. Julie's going to explode.
Yeah. Julie says, why is Trump targeting Democrat-run cities? Is there no crime in red states?
I don't know. Have you looked at the statistics on the crime-infested cities? They're usually very blue.
Yeah. I mean, is it targeting Democratic states or targeting states with high crime that happen to be Democratic states?
We will never know. But again, I don't trust anybody. So what if Trump is targeting Democrat states? Would that be any different than previous administrations targeting red states? So overall principle is, do we want unbiased political responses to things where you're not judged like, people put in prison because of their political views, or with aid withheld because of who you voted for, or whatever. And
I don't fully understand why he's targeting them. I'm targeting you by sending you some more law enforcement. What a jerk. Mm-hmm. Like, what's the bad thing? Do they think that he's just going to like take over control and like affect voters, like lock people up that would vote? I don't understand the logic between why.
It's got to be something. Maybe Julie can answer that.
Yeah, Julie, let me know what the pushback is. Like, what do they think Trump's doing?
So, all right. So let me frame it a little bit. So if you don't think they are there for homelessness and crime, and they do something else, what is that something else? Right? They take over the streets and they patrol more often and they incarcerate some people. Is it that they're coming up to John Smith and saying, "Hey, John Smith, I'm the National Guard. Or do you support Joe Biden, Kamala Harris? Oh, you do. I'm taking you to jail."
Arrested.
Is right.
Yeah. Like, do they kind of like the outcry over all the immigrants that were being arrested and everything? Do they think that we are going to go and arrest people who are not actually causing harm and say that they were?
But we'll let Julie
concern.
respond to it, because there has to be, if you think it's not that thing, you have to have an idea what that thing is. Just tell us about it.
Yeah. There's a couple up that were interesting. Krista says, people are stuck in the incarceration cycle and end up homeless. These people need not just drug rehab, if applicable, but they need help becoming a productive member of society. If a felon applies for a job, they're overlooked, and eventually they end up on the streets.
She's absolutely right. And we've created a prison industry that makes lots and lots of money by taking people's liberties away. So they're not inventing ways to keep people from destroying themselves. The more people they can suck into that system, the more money that people make off of it. So I think that is a huge sin. And it's not about rehab. It's about warehousing your problems rather than solving them. So
absolutely. She's right. She says, so you're buying the notion that numbers are made up and supporting the president, handpicking people who will bend numbers to his will. Who do you trust as far as which cities Trump is targeting? Look at Memphis, Republican-run city, so much crime.
Yeah, and here's the way we do it in the software industry. So basically, I could put together some software, and my code is hidden from you, right? You can't see what my program's really doing. So if I want to put some malware in there, weave it in there, maybe being able to spy on you or see what you're up to or whatever, I could. In the software industry, we do something called open sourcing. So what I do is I take my program, and then I digitally connect it with the code that's underneath. So anybody knows about coding can go through every line and see exactly where that came from. And it keeps the programmers honest because they can't sneak things into the code, right? So what I do is when I hear a number and statistic, I want to know the math behind it. And if they publish the formulations, I can see if you're trying to skew a number for a certain end. Okay, so if you take a median versus a mean, I'm going to wonder why. Like, what about the median? What was more important and had better results for you? Mm-hmm. If you wanted an answer to happen and it benefits you, I can go through numbers and I can make things look better than they are. So if they are transparent, I can see your math. And what I do is whenever something comes out, I immediately go to the open source formulation to find out how they arrived at it. So job numbers came out, and you know about like the initial release of job numbers, and they do revisions afterwards. When's the last time that when they announced job numbers that they didn't have to revise it because they were just correct? Like what? So I wonder if you've got a difference where you wanted it to be good, so you said 100,000 jobs got created, and then a couple weeks later you were like, oh, job revisions came down and we were off by 50,000 of them, right?
Yeah, and you already heard.
So I'm like, how does it happen? Like, yeah. How about this? These people, the economy is leveraged to these numbers releases. So let's just say the first, you don't release your numbers. You wait till you have all your data. Instead of doing a revision, just give me the accurate number the first time you say it, because somebody is going to come along and they're like, oh, we need job numbers to be bad. Okay, legally we have to release these numbers, but we can revise it 2 weeks later if we can. So let's release a bad version of it right now to injure whoever we're looking to injure. And then quietly on page 9, we can do a revision.
You've already heard the first one. People stopped listening. That's what they're going with.
Exactly. And they do this constantly because we don't trust them that they're just going to inform you and give you data, because there's somebody in a boardroom. And we can talk about Fauci with COVID, right? Could have Fauci and all of the CDC just said, here's the data. right? We're going to give you what we know as we know it. Or do you think they're like, people are going to panic if they know the real thing and they're not going to take this thing and we're going to get hesitancy. So we're just going to outright lie, hide some data from them. We're going to pull your maneuver where we're going to count different numbers at different times. So it gives everybody a skewed view.
We're going to play semantics with how we label things.
Exactly. We're going to control them. And so, yeah, I will mistrust numbers when I see evidence. When I look into one example, like I don't look into all of them, but I pick one every once in a while. Do you think that I've ever been like, oh, that was just actual numbers? Or when I dig into the numbers, they're like, come on. That happens every single time. So if it happens every sample that I detect, then I know you're doing a lot of that. And I take those numbers with a grain of salt.
Kind of like when they say, all right, here's our unemployment. And then when we took office, unemployment was this. And now it's this. Look, it's an increase. But they don't tell you it was this. And then it went down to this, and then it increased that percentage.
Yep.
It didn't go up. It went less bad than when it went even worse.
Yeah. So so here's the example for DC. The big talking point was a 30%. Crime is 30% less than it was last year. Okay. So is 30% good?
I mean, if it's improvement.
Okay, it's an improvement. So what if last year was 1,000 times worse, and then you do 30% better than 1,000 times worse? Don't you have to go back?
Like, still bad.
So the best thing to do is compare where your crime statistics versus other people. So we'll say it's 1,200 and 100,000, right? And then so we'll say if for every 100,000 people there are 1,200 incidents of violent crime in DC, right? No percentages. But now I'm going to look around the world and see who else has crime statistics that are at 1,200 people. I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know if I hope it would be zero. And that way you have a crime-free environment. But if you go to Los Angeles and you take the same thing per 100,000 people in Los Angeles, where does it rank? And when I looked into it, it was probably in like 29th or 28th city with the for violent crime. So there are worse places. It's not number one on the list. But as I said at the beginning of the show, it's the one place that federal agencies can go into, and it doesn't have to be blessed by a governor because it's not a freaking state. It makes total sense that you pick a bad one that you can do something about. That makes logical sense to me.
Oh, we can scroll back to the others. Okay. Carter says exactly, Kelin.
He's not sending more law enforcement. He's militarizing them, so people are afraid. People won't protest.
I mean, I don't hate that idea.
Yeah. Militarized law enforcement when it gets bad, if it has a sunset. If you've only militarized it. So if, let's just say you have a wildfire and you break all of the rules about different fire departments fielding a blaze, guess what happens after the forest fire's gone? Right? Now we go back to the rules that it's sunsetted. What we were willing to do when there was a tragedy or a disaster is not what we're willing to do. So let's just say we're going to, like, it's a 30-day cycle. They have 30 days to clean it up. He can dispatch these guys. So it has a natural sunset of 30 days. Congress can then extend that time so they can get more than 30 days, but then it has to be said, all right, Congress, here's what we did. We did this. Here was the data that we pulled off of it. Here's how we're at crime-wise. Can we extend this? And then the Republicans in the House and Senate can say, yes, more time, or nope, you're done. Pull the National Guard out of that.
Someone says, if you go up a little bit, something crime rates in, Julie says, AI info, homicide rates in red states are generally higher than blue states. Okay. AI info, generally higher, but is it currently? Like, we don't generally send in the military. We're doing it now. So is it higher now? Or is that just information supporting something you want it to support?
Well, yeah, that's where you get statistics. If you take rapes, violent crime, so here's how these things are maneuvered. And if you noticed, after the statistics report, I think this was a month ago, he fired the director of the reporting agency and put someone else in there because he felt like he was getting skewed data. So let's just say we'll take this example. and you take all of crimes that are happening in a state, and science needs sort of like a standard that is uniformly calculated. All right, so let's just say you put together what is a violent crime and the definition, and you list all the things that are supposed to be packaged in violent crime. Homicides would probably be in there. Rapes would be in there. Carjackings would be in there. But then a politician says, man, our statistics in crime, let's parse out, right? Let's parse out one of those things, and either to raise it if you're making a point or lower it to make a certain point. So then the Julies of the world can parse out one thing and say, let's go to red state, Alabama or Georgia or whatever. And because it's parsed out, I picked out one thing that they were higher in and said, see, look, Georgia's homicide rate. But then if I took that and packaged it in the same way that we calculated the other statistics and they were uniform in what they were calculating, now we've got a fair comparison. So yeah, maybe there will be parts of red states that you take that same approach to when it's way out of line with the national averages and or the counting of per 100,000 people. But I don't. Again, I'm not an expert in the statistics, and I don't trust the people that are. But I'd be more than happy to audit any of those numbers and find out why you use the homicide rate. Where was the rest of the things that constituted violent crime?
Julie, would you feel better if Trump was doing the exact same thing, but he's doing it in red states? Would you feel better if he happened to still deploy our military, do the exact same things, and list all the exact same reasons, but none of the states he went into were Democratic states? Would you somehow feel better about what he's doing?
It's a fair question. Jerry says, are people just stupid? Devil's advocate. Why aren't the blue states getting free law enforcement to help keep people safe? Maybe we should separate the country and put all the red states to the left and all states to the right, and let them deal with their own problems. It's like the old parable of God sending the boat, etc., to the people on their roof, and they turn it away. Thank you, sir.
So God didn't send them anything to help.
Yeah.
So yeah, we send help, they turn it away, and then say, you won't help us.
Exactly. Because we don't have fair-minded, reasonable people. We have partisanship, and this is what you get. You get Julie enraged, thinking that this is an overstep of the people that you didn't vote for, and no matter what they do, it's bad. I saw somebody saying Trump cures cancer, and somebody had a sign that says cancer has a right to to thrive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's we make fun of it and mock it, but that is exactly what every step is.
Yeah. If you turn a blind eye to the ways that other leaders have done similar things and you only hate on one,
it's just ideological capture.
Yeah. Julie says the 1878, is that
Posse Comitatus Act?
Posse Comitatus Act only gives Congress the power to use the military against its citizens. Our founding fathers were smart enough to be extremely wary of this power. The president can only do this under the Insurrection Act. Okay. No, Kelin, AI info was from 20 years ago. She being facetious.
It's easier for a president to go hide for 4 years like Biden and do nothing than Trump, who's trying to make a difference from the U.S. and all over the world. And Julie says, no, see the Constitution. Krista says, if Trump deployed military in any city, red or blue, it's concerning. Why do people think this is free law enforcement? Let's look at that from here. Here's where you went wrong, though. If you trusted that your law enforcement was uncorruptible, okay, so all it takes is if you had a, state or city police department, and you gave them the choice to pick and choose what laws they applied and not, then we would trust you. But as long as hey, we're a sanctuary city, and I know the law says this, but it's kind of like just a suggestion. We're not going to apply the law. We're not going to arrest those people. Then the federal government says, you're not compliant. And usually our position with non-compliant states is that they break away from the help that the federal government gives you, and the federal government can force you into doing things by, leveraging that help. But if you have something that's of national importance where, and this is where I do not agree that Trump, I think he took a lot of our issues and put them as a national security harm to the federal government, which then allowed them to overstep their bounds. And so let's just say immigrants were in your state and it should be a state problem. You clean it up. And if you're not doing it, that poses risk to the national deal. And now the federal government has to step in. But all they have to say is clean up your shit. And then the federal government doesn't have to do anything. But since you didn't want to do that, now the federal government has to do a thing. So it's almost like you went wrong by not enforcing the laws that would have protected you from that overreach. You're just as bad as the overreach that you say you don't like now.
Yeah. Hypocrites.
That's the word of the day.
It is. And why didn't Trump call the National Guard on January 6th? This is blatantly ridiculous.
And that is a fair point. If he put a request in for the National Guard, which has been proven at this point, and it was denied by Nancy Pelosi and the January 6th instigating crew.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't Trump just say, oh, you denied it? I'm putting it in there anyway because I'm showing that I can do it now. So it is a fair point.
Yeah. I mean, but is that an example of boat was sent and you turned it away? If you put in a request and they said, no, we're fine. Now you say you should have done it. So here's a situation where things don't look fine. I'm going to go ahead and do it. Why did you do that? It's like,
yeah,
like damned if you do and damned if you don't. So again, what should have happened?
Well, if I'm a reporter in the pool, that I'm asking the press secretary why they didn't do it. I just want to hear the response. Like all of a sudden you figure out that you can send National Guard when it's something of importance in DC. You have that ability to do. You're displaying it, demonstrating it right now. So why didn't you do that on that day? Right. And if there was a good relationship between the press and the administration, then you would just get your answer. And there's got to be some logic in it. And even if the logic is like, do you really think, do you really think that Trump wanted January 6th to happen?
I don't know. Honestly, don't know.
Okay.
I don't think he would mind if something painted the Dems in a bad light.
Okay.
And him in a good one. And if it can any roundabout do that, I think it's
really likely that he wanted to show displeasure and he wanted to see this huge grouping of people just show how, frustrated and angry they were.
Yeah.
And that would have fed his ego. Look at all these people that you pissed off.
Yeah.
I don't think he realized how out of hand it was going to get. And part of the blame is on how little reaction they got from the people who could have stationed the National Guard and really upped it so that it didn't turn into what it is. So I blame Trump for sending a bunch of people who were really pissed off at the time. And I also blame everybody else who didn't barrier and stop that crowd from getting out of hand as it did. Both are equally as culpable as far as I'm concerned.
Do you think that day was a result of both sides just being petty and fighting each other? And there was victims in that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I don't see that day as just Trump's doing. I think that was a day that both toddlers were fighting with each other and people got hurt.
Yeah. And I think the Democrats played, the better strategy there. They wanted chaos and they let chaos happen. And they got to dominate the news with January 6th. They got to pin it right on Trump's chest. It was and so I agree with you that if he would have just sent the National Guard, what might have been saved from, had he done it.
Krista says, you want to back the blue? Give them funding, resources they're asking for. Don't deploy the effing military. It's theater.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that as well. But I do require police and law enforcement to equally apply the law to everyone. They do not have the right and ability to stand down and not make arrests. If you're breaking the law, you don't turn a blind eye to it. Oh, you're an illegal. I have an illegal machine, and you put the illegal in the illegal machine and let them pay the consequence that the law requires it.
Do we know, have the local law enforcement in that area said anything as far as, no, we needed help or we did not need help?
I don't know. I've not heard from local law enforcement at all.
I would be interested in seeing what their
What
take
their
on it
opinion
was.
is, if they're standoffish.
Yeah, if they were like, this was totally unnecessary, we got it. Or if they were like, no, we were drowning here, we needed help.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see what they thought.
Yes, Trump wanted January 6th to happen. He's no dummy. And Julie says it's not a proven fact that Trump called in the National Guard. In fact, his own administration begged him to stop, and he refused. It is a proven fact that there just recently, if you read, and all this stuff's going to come out. You don't have to take a single report or hearing or whatever and predicate all your thoughts. It's very likely that the Democrats wanted this to happen. And so to minimize the response was going to give them exactly what they wanted. And again, I trust that it will come out that Nancy Pelosi pulled the strings, right, to make exactly what they wanted to happen.
Yeah, Carter says Pelosi wanted it to happen, and that is why she denied the National Guard. She knew there would be trouble as the head of the Capitol Police, bigger her, but she is a conniver and knew Trump would be blamed.
For sure.
Begged her. Does that mean Trump begged her to accept National Guard, or I don't know. Krista says law enforcement doesn't know what the heck is going on. Read their reports.
Yeah, what I saw, and they're sweeping the streets and they're talking to people. They're setting up, and I think that Big Balls. Remember Big Balls?
I remember. Wasn't that guy who he changed something to Big Balls on, so the news had to say it. I can't remember. You might have to refresh
Big Balls
my
was
memory.
one of Doge's young programmers, and that was
Yes.
his name. And the news had to use the Big Balls name. But anyway,
Yes.
in DC, I believe it was his girlfriend. It might have been somebody who wasn't his girlfriend, but he and his girlfriend were somewhere. Somebody was getting carjacked, and he intervened to stop the carjacking, and he got pummeled. Pictures of him bloodied and bruised and whatever. So Big Balls helped out in what would be a carjacking. And that was like the last public, moment of violence that made the newspapers. And then all of this happened after it. So carjackings happen a lot. A lot of young teens are raiding stores and stealing stuff. I mean, it's off the charts chaotic in DC. So I think these zones that they're putting in place where they have curfews and, the police and now the National Guard are going to be polling like after 8 o'clock. We're going to find out what business you have to be on the streets and cleaning up that, getting it to settle down a little bit.
Again, why is this a bad thing? Guys, tell me, why is this a bad thing? I don't get it.
Trump called on his cult to march to the Capitol. He was going to go. Yes, he absolutely did. Capitol Police begged for help as his intelligence knew there would be trouble. Yeah, I believe it. I knew everybody knew. Everybody was so pissed off in that moment. And when you recount it, you're like, he didn't try hard enough for it not to happen. And that's where I put blame on him, where he could have very much tried a little harder, but also at the same time, neither did anybody else.
Yeah, he probably did enough to be like, I tried.
Exactly.
But he was the only one that tried it all. Is that what you're saying? And then he could be like, well, I tried. You didn't want it.
If you believe that there were feds in the group that were trying to incite more things to happen and make people enter buildings, make people push down barricades, inciting and really getting it going. If the Democrats really had control of the institutions and really hated Trump, you could actually stage something making it worse than it would have been. And once they're in the Capitol, then you kind of just let the natural, stuff happen. And if the National Guard tamps that down, then you're not going to have that thing depend on Trump's chest. So that is a possibility and maybe a probability as far as I'm concerned. But again, we're going to know all about this here shortly. So all these, I think the Adam Schiffs and the Liz Cheneys, all of these people, right, are going to be prosecuted. And through the evidence, what wasn't destroyed by now, we're going to know what happens or happened.
That'd be interesting. Julie says January 6th was all about overturning an election. Why would Dems want to overturn an election?
Well, overturning, I don't think anybody thought it was going to be overturned. I mean, if you look at what did you think was going to happen? They were going to go in there. They were going to make it so that the election wasn't carried. Do you really think they were going to hang out and take hostage the Capitol building and so Trump would just be a forever
all of a sudden
president?
We have a different president
or
because
do
of
you
what
think
happened?
like a couple hours later, the National Guard would come in, disperse the crowd, and the election would still happen? Nobody really believes that it was going to be overturning the election.
Yeah. Made inconvenient, maybe stifled temporarily.
Yeah, bunch of douchebags caused a problem, and they caused
Yeah.
a scene, and it was dispersed, and Joe Biden became president. That's what happened. And in none of that formulation did any of those people have the ability to just take over in Trumpville forever. There was not. That was a 0% chance of that happening.
Janet says none of it would have happened on January 6th if he would have just accepted that he lost. And Krista says, are you kidding me?
Well, do you think right now, if you were sitting down with Trump, and do you think he believed that he lost?
No.
Okay, so admitting something that you didn't believe. So let's just take that. If you were in an election that was contested and you felt there was a lot of flubbery going on, what would you have done?
I would have said there's flubbery going on.
Okay. And maybe delaying Biden's, the ceremony of him being the next president, you wait a little bit and sift through the data. Now, 4 years have gone by, more than 4 years have gone by, and we've not gotten fraud to the point that we could absolutely say that it was hit, but there's enough stuff to be able to take a look at.
Yeah. If somebody believed that Trump cheated and won the election unfairly, do you honestly think the left would just admit they lost?
I don't think so.
No.
No, not at all.
No, they wouldn't.
So
but
yeah,
again, it's only bad when one side does it.
So, but
when the other
her
does
hypothetical was that if he'd have just said, "Okay, I lost for the sake of peace, don't get all pissed off. It was a fair and free election," then it wouldn't have happened. But that's not the case. He didn't believe it was, and he made known that he thought this was. And
why? And I'm not talking about this term in a violent way, but when Kamala lost, all of her speeches afterwards were, "We must continue to fight. We're never going to give up. Keep fighting." And it's like, why don't you just admit you lost? Why don't you just say, "Oh, all right, well, we'll get him next time, maybe blah, blah, blah." Like, but again, it's only bad when one side does it. Oh, he can't accept he lost. He can't just say this happened. He can't whatever. But it's okay if they do it. Did they just roll over and say, "Oh, darn, we lost."
All right, let's get off of January 6th, unless Jared just wrote a bunch of stuff. Let me make sure. It was all on Pence. He could have delayed the result. And if he did, here's how it would have played out. They would have delayed it. It would have been forced to say if he was challenging whether or not it was a legitimate election, somebody reasonable would have said, "You lost, and there's no way that we overturn this election." And then the next day, it would have just continued right where it was. There was nothing in this that says Trump would have just become forever president. 100% delay. I agree with you. It could have gone further, but it wasn't going to be overturned. So
yeah.
Let's see. LBJ used National Guard during MLK March in Selma. He also did it in 1967 Detroit riot. Press Johnson and Delaware governor kept National Guard for 9 months after the rioting. Carter used the U.S. Coast Guard in 1980 to help the Cubans flee Cuba for U.S. George H.W. Bush sent 6,000 National Guards to curtail the Rodney King riots and also sent FBI SWAT teams and additional 4,500 soldiers. Let's be heartless to everyone and say 60-ish people died, so it was a waste to fund the job. Yeah, the job of the National Guard is. So, yeah, it's not unprecedented when local law enforcement being overrun either by lack of leadership, lack of resources, whatever. They need some extra help, and that's why they're in D.C. That's what I'm going with right now.
Yeah.
She did concede without a fight. Same with Hillary. She still thinks she won. his own people, Bill Barr, etc., told him he had lost. I want to reserve this conversation until a lot more of this stuff comes out in the next couple of weeks. I alluded to that I thought it was going to happen this week, but I don't necessarily think it is. I want to make sure. I don't want you to have to repeat yourselves after this and eat crow too much. So just wait a little bit.
Do we know we're actually getting stuff on this? I mean, we were getting Epstein files. We were getting RFK information. We were getting, like, are we actually
Are you talking to help or Hopeful Joe or Practical Joe?
both?
Okay. Hopeful Joe says, yes, we're going to bring this stuff to light because the Department of Justice is pursuing it and there's going to be evidence, right? So if they present it and it hasn't been destroyed, then eventually we could know about it. Practical Joe says, no, it's going to go away and nobody's going to be prosecuted and they're going to find out it's way more complicated than everybody thought. And it's going to go right next to the Epstein files somewhere. So that's my official response.
What was this thing? I saw a headline come up when I was traveling this weekend, so I didn't get a chance to read what it was. What was the whole... I saw something that says Ghislaine Maxwell vindicates Trump.
We're not there yet. The only thing we know with the Ghislaine Maxwell requested a transfer to a minimum security prison in Texas, I think. And so she got moved out of New York and went to Texas. And that's all we know at this point. She's in a different place. And everybody's speculating as to why that move was. That part of, testifying, where moving it away from there, was it to protect her life? Did somebody get wind that somebody was coming to get her, so they moved her to a different place? Really don't know. So there's no vindication that happened. She didn't say one way or the other. There's still a belief that I have that since she's working on, a Trump administration, you're going to see a lot less Republicans on the lists of what she does to testify. Very cherry picked. I'm 100% expecting that. The only way that you don't get that to happen is you bring both parties in on the investigation, and that's not going to be a possibility whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things that the Democrat law enforcement does. If you can choose to not prosecute some things but prosecute others, do you expect the Department of Justice not to cherry pick and prosecute the ones that you want and just overlook the ones that you don't want? I 100% think that's going to happen. But it was one of those things. The Biden administration could have prosecuted, so they could have prosecuted in their direction, and they didn't take it. So I blame everybody who overlooked everything for a really long time. So at least somebody's going to get prosecuted, even if it's mostly all Democrats. We just don't live in a blind, just world. We live in hyper-partisanship. So, I mean, I'm just a realist.
What does Julie mean? Practical Joe is reading the cards.
Practical Joe is reading the cards.
I don't get what that.
I don't
Julie,
know.
what do you mean by that? Hopeful Joe or Practical Joe is reading the cards.
Maybe looking to see what the landscape is. I mean, I'm just taking an objective snapshot of what's likely to happen, and every step, the evidence is that every step that I'm like, they're about to do something and they do nothing, just has me wondering either this is something that is just going to ultimately go away because we're just going to get whiplash from so many things that are in the news, or that they're going to prosecute, but they're going to do it so people actually go to prison, which if you've ever paid attention to even a court case from somebody you knew, it's not like an in the weekend type of thing.
Yeah.
You got to do your investigation, and you got to, do enough evidence that overwhelms a jury, and do it so that you don't get halfway through it and the person gets off because you didn't do due diligence. So I'm hopeful that's what they're doing, but the Practical Joe says that that's not likely.
Yeah. Julie says you're looking at the pattern that is happening.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, I'm very skeptical that we will hear anything more about January 6th, especially when I believe there are two sides involved. If Republicans were clearly in the wrong about anything, Dems would push until they get it out, and vice versa. If the Dems were clearly in the wrong about anything, Trump would never let that go. But the reason I think the Epstein files keep coming to a dead end, January 6th keeps coming to a dead end, anything else to me says both of you are to blame. Both of you are fighting on this. Both of you have involvement. And that's why we'll never actually know much.
the only pushback I'm going to give on that is there a partisan angle? Okay, so you're the Department of Justice where Trump is your boss, right? And the outcome is there is a grouping of Democrats that have been sniping at you for 5 years. If you bring a court case against these people, the people that you freaking despise are going to look terrible. So if Trump wants to get a vindictive vein, I know he doesn't have vindictive veins in his body at all. He's always pretty humble that way.
Such a classy guy.
But if he gets vindictive and he wants to see those people who have been a pain in his ass, it's a high likelihood that that's the one they're going to take aim at, and we're most likely to know what happened because of it. There's very little Republican exposure. Bill Barr's like the only one, and it feels like he was complicit in this. So Trump and Barr didn't get along. He was one of the snipers. So he'd just be collected in the same group of people that he wants to really get, paybacks on. So very likely that this part will come out.
Julie says Trump's name has been redacted over 1,000 times. What does that mean exactly? I keep hearing like when names get redacted. Well, how does that happen?
So when you have a court case, the entire court case, everything that was said, the people's names, addresses, social, everything that came out in the court case is part of the official documents of that case. Redacting means that if I may pull an information request from you, there are certain things in there that are too sensitive for me to have, right? And so if I had somebody's name and they were underage, well, the media can't have that version, so I redact it. I have a black line over it so nobody can read that portion. You can't have any
way to figure out who it is, right? Don't they say they can redact a lot of information that could make you guess who you're talking about?
Exactly. So you won't have officially it be known who they were talking about. There might be some context clues around it, but they're not allowed to give you that information.
So wouldn't that not be at all surprising that a document about January 6th would have Trump's name in it?
Well, I think they're talking about the Epstein list being redacted 1,000 times. And I don't buy any of the horse shit that has come out lately about that. I don't think anybody knows. So for people to making the claim that they're giving him positive redactments or whatever, I still don't buy it yet.
Do we even have information about like, oh, there's all these other names that have been redacted too? Or is it just his name has been redacted?
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know, and nobody else does at this point. And the critics, but the critics taking aim at this angle is pushing them to do, like, if I made a charge at you and all you had to do is to quiet me down is to release the thing, it puts pressure on them to release the thing. So Trump's like, they're saying my name's all over. That's not a good Trump impression. That was more of a George W. Bush.
Look, they're saying my name's all over this document. I don't know. I've never seen this document. I've never met this man in my life because, quite frankly, I'm far too busy and I'm far too powerful and rich to be hanging out with someone who's, quite frankly, not as rich as me. But that's what they're saying. The Dems are saying this. I don't know why they're saying this.
That's good. I couldn't even interrupt that. You were really going.
I just channeled Trump.
But then if he says, release these documents so that I can show that my name wasn't redacted a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Or if they redact anybody, like Victoria Prince redacted out, that one's Trump. I know it. That one's freaking Trump. That's the kind of thing that's being set up. But I don't believe any of it yet. Yeah,
because Carter says 4 years under Biden and didn't hear a word from the Dems about Epstein.
Yeah.
Would they not have been pushing if they believed
Very likely.
It was if it was Republican heavy in these documents? And
unless it was so it implicated so many Democrats too, they didn't touch it. Even though they could out Trump, they would out a bunch of their friends. So it's one of those things where I'll wait on this one. All the things that people know is in there, it's just speculation.
Carter says, very good, Kelin. You do a great Trump as Joe does a Russian accent. Krista says, I've noticed you guys are quick to believe assumptions about Trump's political enemies, but when reporting comes out about Trump, you're willing to give the guy every benefit of the doubt.
I don't think so. I think we're calling a spade. We're calling a spade a spade. I do think that every once in a while, what would based on my feelings and where I've pinned everybody down, what would be likely? So if you gave me a James Comey and a Pete Hegseth, for instance.
Mhm.
Like I got both of these personalities so that if you said something about Pete Hegseth, and if it was contrary to what I was believable about, like I'm not a fan of any of these people,
Right.
but I got a good beat on what I think they are. I would be more likely to give Pete Hegseth a pass on something because I don't have any evidence that he committed any of the things. He was forthcoming about the things that you did charge at him. I feel like he's a little bit more straight shooter. But then if you have James Comey and you make a charge against James Comey, and if it's congruent with what I think we're at with James Comey, I'm quicker to believe that. So it's not my bias that's doing that. It is the profile that I've created that makes it either believable or not believable. You're just seeing me hate Democrats a lot more than I hate Republicans at this stage.
Yeah. And that's what I tell people all the time. People always tell me, depending on what episode of our show they watched, I can get called a Trumpster, or I can get called a lib.
Right.
And it depends on what we're talking about, because there can be countless reasons to not give Trump the benefit of the doubt in certain situations, or to praise Dems in certain situations. But when you bring up a situation that is not that, then yes, like if you cry wolf one too many times, that's going to be taken into consideration as to whether or not someone's bad.
Yep.
So it's like, we don't have to always love and support Trump, and we don't have to always love and support Biden or anyone. But if you're going to bring up an example, I'm going to say, that's not an example of this. He wasn't wrong there.
Yeah.
Maybe he was wrong here, but not there. And we'll do the same thing in any situation. Like we'll call out, we've said Trump signs too many executive orders. It's absolutely unnecessary. You want to talk about how that can be ridiculous? We'll say Trump's ridiculous all day long.
Absolutely.
But then don't give us an example in which Trump wasn't being ridiculous and expect us to just get on board with it.
Yeah.
That's TDS, is when you're like, I just want to see only bad.
I have blind hatred and I'm going to hate this guy, and I have blind acceptance where anything they say, I'm going to chew it up.
Yep.
Let's see. Pam Bondi and the FBI said this happened. The redactments, is that what you're saying? The FBI said this happened? Jerry says, can you ask Julie to give 5 to 10 things that any Democrat president or cabinet member did that was wrong? Need to take blinders off and remember, when you point a finger, there's 4 pointing back at you. And Julie says, I believe there are reps and Dems and world leaders on it. That is why we will never know.
Yeah. I think it's too heavily stacked of both sides.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't, the one side would be pushing hard. Yeah. And they're not.
All right, let's talk about Texas, because we got another half hour.
This ain't Texas.
All right. So this is the great gerrymandering war of 2025. Okay.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning. This is going to get good, and I am freaking here for it, because I said the way you fix this is you have to make it super absurd. It can't be just this little knife cuts here and there. Somebody complains about it, they get a little change here, and then we all just tolerate it. So it's everybody. It is a universal, mostly universal agreement that gerrymandering effing sucks. It sucks.
Yep.
Okay. The states are allowed to draw their districts for representation. Whoever's in there, they disregard the spirit of what gerrymander or what these districts are supposed to be. Do you know what they're supposed to be?
Not really.
So it's supposed to be, you send representatives to government and you create a grouping of people who you want to be representative. So if this area is farm, then you put a district manager in there, a congressman, who then goes to Washington and represents agriculture and farming. So the voters of that area say, that's the guy who I want to vote for because he knows farmers, he knows us, and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can take things like industries and ethnic groups and different wealth categories. And if you're the state, you can decide to draw lines any way you want them. And we went away from representing to formulating strategies to get people elected. So if you're in an area and there's this little Republican contingent and they keep making our elections too close, I'm going to redistrict it. I'm going to carve this little nugget out of the red districts, and then they're not going to be close elections. Then whoever your district manager in this area will get a way easier time getting elected.
So you'll be like, I think these people will vote for me and these people will vote for me, so I'm just going to...
Exactly. Carve them out. And so you create election advantage by being able to parse those out. And the voters don't care that you do that kind of stuff. You would think they would just kind of grab their pearls and say you're wrecking democracy by, creating fake elections and fake representatives. And that's effectively where we're at. Every state does it. Ohio's does it. Texas does it. California does it. Every state freaking does it. So in the future, when if we give the rules of drawing out these districts, not taking in consideration election results, the Republicans at this point would probably have about 240 representatives, and the Democrats would have like 160. It would be way sharpened, and Republicans have the most to gain, right, by having blind districts. The Democrats need gerrymandering into having any kind of a close advantage in representation. So they've taken the years of getting very creative and clever about creating districts that shouldn't exist. Okay, so that's the premise of what we're doing and why.
Okay.
Well, Texas is a conservative controlled state. All right. And they are also one where immigration and census data has skewed their districts in the Democrats' direction. So while they have this, the House and Senate, they are going to district and remove 5 districts from Texas and redraw lines. Right. And I put in an envelope at the beginning of this year. What's happening now was what Republicans had to do before the midterms. 100%. I called this one. So anyway, they drew up a map. It's heavily slanted back in the Republicans' direction, and 50 plus Democrats walked out. Right. And they got on airplanes and went to Illinois. So now there's not enough people to call quorum, and they can't get the state's work underway. So they're in a holding pattern right now. So then the governor put warrants out for their arrest.
I was going to say, I heard that was illegal.
What's illegal?
For them to leave.
Well, it is illegal.
Okay.
They have to do their job, but it's more ceremonial. No one's getting arrested. There's not going to be SWAT teams that go collect these people up. They would have to be extradited from.
It's more frowned upon.
It is. So that part doesn't have teeth. So then they put a $500 a day fine on them, and then they killed direct deposit, so they wouldn't be paid until they collected their check if they actually, would have to come back. But this is theater. It's nothing more than absolute theater. They're going to come back to get their checks, and they're going to have to vote for it, and they're going to throw a fit and whatever. But then Gavin Newsom in California, who was opposed to the gerrymandering in the Republicans' direction, says, if you do that, I'm going to gerrymander California. So now all of a sudden, gerrymandering is put on the menu of stuff that politicians are willing to do sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And so now he's threatening to then offset the 5 districts that Texas is going to get by gerrymandering California and creating new 5 Democrat districts in California. And this is a fierce escalation.
Isn't that overreaching? And
no, not when Democrats. No, that's no.
Isn't that like sort of like
no? They're allowed
being a dictator and doing whatever you want.
This helps democracy.
This helps. Feels like it's like skewing things.
No, it's not cheating. It's
so that
it's not
you
wrong
get
anymore.
What you want.
No, you're wrong.
Only when the Republicans did it.
Republicans, it's destroying democracy. You got that right.
Democrats do it. It's fair.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. They are fighting for democracy. So if they have to break democracy for democracy, they're going to break democracy. I can't believe you don't know this.
And like leaving the state when that's against the rules.
That's helping democracy.
Saving democracy.
Yes. Shutting democracy down is democracy.
Bringing military in.
Not democracy, authoritarian.
To save people's lives.
Oh, wait. That one's democracy.
But that's bad.
Yes. But it can be. What you don't understand, the rubric is that sometimes it's democracy and sometimes it's tyranny.
Yes.
Right? But you have to know when it's each one. These guys are smart. They're lawyers, right? You are the one that needs to catch up.
I guess so.
Okay.
Left, good. Right, bad.
Most of the time.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Penny Lane says every state isn't gerrymandered as bad as Ohio. Nationally, the worst. Are we the worst?
We're bad. We're pretty bad.
Did
But
we
they're all bad.
Did we just vote on that?
What, gerrymandering?
Yeah.
So they were floating the idea of setting up a 10-person panel that was in the judicial, and so a judge would appoint people to be on this that are nonpartisan or at least equally partisan to redraw these districts, where they would have to make some concessions, give up some territories, and make it a more fair drawing of those maps. We didn't like it because these are unelected people. So what's to say a judge, once he can just pick whoever he feels, don't create a hyper partisan version of that, and all of a sudden it's just a unfireable version of what the state houses were doing. It was just you couldn't explain to me how it wasn't going to get corrupted, so I wasn't for it. Yet I would trust AI to do it with no being able to see what logic that you gave the AI than a judge that just can be bought off and whimmed out. So
Julie says, is leaving Congress to avoid voting on the Epstein files democratic or not?
Finesse here. Okay. So if they leave Congress and they're doing it to spite Republicans, then that's tyranny. If they leave Congress to spite Democrats, that's the fall of democracy. We'll get this right. By the end of the show, you will know when the action is either one.
Krista says, fire has to be fought with fire at this point.
Exactly. So exactly.
This administration and bootlicking Congress is steamrolling everything. I mean, everything is being taken over. Kennedy Center, Smithsonian, World Trade. It's crazy. It's hyper partisan. Democrats need to put up a fight.
Of course. And if it means breaking democracy to save democracy, you have to do what you got to do.
Break democracy in the name of saving democracy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got it.
Yeah.
Penny Lane says, no, Dems don't draw up new maps whenever they want. Wrong. They wait for census.
So here's how it works. You got two parts of this, and this is important that you brought this up. So census data counts everybody that you have, right? And then based on your population, you are given so many seats. Okay, so for 1 million people, you get one district. So high populated areas have lots of representation because they're managing lots more people that they're on. Mm-hmm. So if I had a really good idea, and what I was going to do is I want more seats, I'm going to invite illegals to come into my states, get counted, get more representation, right? And then I get more districts. So here's the other thing I wrote down in my super sweet January card of things that were happen. Trump is going to call for a census recount that will exclude non-citizens from the counts. And you're going to watch about 19 seats that California has drop off the face of the earth when we stop counting illegals. Do you think illegals should be counted in a census?
No. I mean, I would like to know they're here, but should they be counted as law-abiding voters?
Boom. See, that's how it's actually going to go down, where they're going to be counted in the census and marked as a non-citizen. And then when the districts are drawn, all you got to do is add a little thing to the rules that says that we are only going to count, for districting's sake, we're going to only count residents rather than all people in there. And this is going to absolutely happen.
Because who's to say, hey, you know what? We are of the right, of the left, whatever. And the state's about to be recounted. And we need the numbers so that when we get up to the president, we've got more numbers. So everybody, it's time for a vacation to that state for the next little while.
Moving people around, bodies.
Like, I'm going to go and live in Texas for a while. I'm going to go and do this for a while to get counted.
Yeah.
You'd say, wait, but you're not a resident of that state. You're just here visiting.
So in the theory of like breaking a little democracy for the sake of democracy, fighting fire with fire. So if it were done straight up, the Republicans would have 260 seats in there. You would be at a huge minority. So what would you be willing to do so that make sure that didn't happen? Would you be willing to invite illegals that cause crime, devastation, rapes, murders, and all that kind of stuff to pad your numbers so that democracy breaking Republican control didn't happen? That would be fighting fire with fire. How about stuffing ballot boxes? Was fighting fire stuffing ballot boxes to make sure that, your dudes win and the other parts don't. Breaking laws it seems like fighting fire to what end, right? If you think that the orange man is going to win, what are you willing to compromise in the sake of democracy to fix democracy? It's a good question.
Yeah.
So none of that stuff is off the table as far as I'm concerned.
Julie says, now it's finesse. We're finessing it. You said they're going to finesse the...
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You're both... Citicism is baffling. Citicism. Is that spelled right?
I don't know if it's cynicism or that's a new word that I can add. Citicism.
Is it cynicism?
I don't know.
That might be a typo. Okay. I don't know that word. Like Jim Jordan's district, all prisoners who can't vote. And Penny Lane says non-citizens don't vote. But do they get counted, which equal representatives?
They get more seats. Yep.
Yeah, they're not doing that to say, let me grab all these people who are going to vote for me.
But if you've got a bunch of non-citizens who vote and you got a lot of ballots that you've been accumulating and you need somebody to deliver it, what's to say that we don't use our troop of counted people, do your civic duty and deliver these ballots from, somebody who doesn't regularly vote, but we got their name on this piece of paper. And that would be my cynicism, by the way. Cynicism. I don't trust that the Democrats have anything in them that they just want to play a straight up game. They're trying to win elections and they're trying to break democracy to save democracy.
Penny says propaganda. There's very little, if any, voter fraud. No evidence ever.
Is that snarkiness? Was that sarcasm? Because I hear that there's certain things that you're not allowed to question. That elections are pure and nobody ever cheats is one of those ones. And if you say that there might be some people,
we have phone calls of actual conversations of people meddling in elections.
Yes.
I'm not talking about this one in particular, but it is a fact, an evidence-driven fact that yes, governments interfere with elections. It does happen.
Yes.
It has happened. Sideism is what she meant.
Sideism. Like tribalism.
Accusing us to leaning more to one side.
Okay. Yeah.
Non-citizens don't vote, she said, in all capital letters.
I know they don't vote. But they could vote. They could.
And we also said if they're counted, if you have a whole bunch of non-citizens in an area and they're counted in a census as a whole bunch of people, do you not now get 2 representatives for that area
that are
to
going
represent
to
people
vote?
Who aren't voting?
Yes. That's the point. That's why I said there's 2. The census makes it so you get more representatives to send to the federal government, and the illegals then, or it's the representatives in the district, and then also the gerrymandering to get them to be blue rather than red.
Krista says, please tell me how non-citizens vote. Have you ever looked at a mail-in ballot? And Penny says, it's not sarcasm. That's propaganda. I'm not talking about Russia or Kari Lake. So outside of Russia and Kari Lake, fraud never happens. And if you question it, that's un-American and that breaks democracy. You have to have faith in your elections or else this is just going to be anarchy and chaos. So look into my eyes and I want you to admit to me that elections are fair. They're accurate. Don't ever question it.
Do not ever question it.
Don't question anything.
No. Even if I can take things out and say, well, there's, a probability or a possibility of fraud. When you look at that, it is not American.
Listen, don't question anything unless you're questioning the motives of Trump sending in the National Guard.
Then, yes.
I question that.
Yeah, have
but
to.
I'm not.
That's American.
That
is democracy in action.
You only question certain things, not other things.
Yes, that's the finesse. You have to know this.
I got it. Penny says no fraud during the election. Didn't happen. Then GOP tried to say election was rigged. People went to prison for that. Poll workers went to prison for that.
Yeah. There's a couple more. I think there was it was in Texas where there was a orchestrated ballot harvesting and stuffing ring that, and you can make the only thing I'll say is you can make the argument that the fraud and the the fraud wasn't big enough that would have changed the outcome, you can make that argument. But you can't say there was no fraud. Nobody will hear you out. And so my second question is, if you can get an elected official to tell you that yes, fraud happens, and then challenge it. So what pressures do you put in place to make sure that fraud doesn't happen? If I, like voter ID, that makes it go in one direction. One person, one ballot. Like if Tony comes down and is allowed to, during COVID in 2020, if Tony's allowed to collect up all of his neighbors' ballots and then throw them in the box, he delivered 10,000 ballots. You hope Tony's a straight up guy and he didn't go canvassing and dig up people who weren't going to vote that time, have them like sign on the dotted line and then just mass deliver people where harvested those votes that wouldn't have happened otherwise. That's my argument, is you don't have to necessarily create a direct fraud where something, a bad ballot was put in there, but you can do a whole lot to skew an election based on things that would have not naturally happened if it was my voter ID and casting my ballot. It would have been different. Anything than that was fraud.
And that really made me question when there was any sort of stink made about voter ID. To me, it was the dumbest thing ever. Why would you not have voter ID? That's to me, the most basic, obvious thing you would do is I go to vote, I show my ID. And we was like, no, that's not fair. You shouldn't have to have that. I was like, well, that sounds shady. That's a bit of a red flag. Why would you not want them to have voter ID? To me, I was like, well, you're inviting fraud then. Just have the ID. Everybody gets one. It's free. It's easy to produce. It's not anything that you have to have it to fly. You have to have it to drive. You have to have it to purchase alcohol. You have to have it to rent a car. You have to have it for everyday life, but not making the biggest decision of our country's. Like that to me was the biggest red flag.
Right.
Any pushback on that?
And you just have to ask, like, who benefits from you not having, right? Is there anybody that is high five? And it's not a charitable thing where you're trying to preserve and protect the voting rights of somebody. It's if this happens, then we're going to get, it's hard enough to check the validity of signatures and who voted and who didn't vote. If you want to really ramp it up and make it super hard to check, let's just not even check any kind of ID. And we'll just have you do the honor system, because we know people are honorable and they would never in a million years.
Like with Social Security, there's never fraud there,
never
right?
Fraud, no.
There's never somebody collecting a deceased loved one's check.
No.
There's never somebody who died still getting checks to their name. It's 100% accurate.
Yes. Yeah.
So why wouldn't voter?
Those of you just joining
Both
us, this
be
is
100%
Sarcasm
accurate.
Hour here. Thanks for joining us.
Sarcasm, not sidism. We're being sarcastic right
62
now.
courts, no evidence. Well, you go on believing that. You go on believing.
Don't stop believing.
We nailed
Hold
it.
on to that
GOP made an
feeling.
issue into a non-issue. Voter ID isn't an issue. Okay. You'll see some changes here. I can guarantee that, within the next big election, that there are going to be some things worked out. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be better than it is
Julie
today.
says, I do agree with photo ID being required because it
'cause that is
just
reasonable.
makes sense.
It is.
It's very reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Julie can be reasonable.
Yeah. And if there truly is an exception, right, for a contingent of people that driver's licenses and IDs are just unreachable, then you field out those people in particular, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let 99% of people show IDs if they have one to make those people reasonable, and you treat the people who just can't get one separately.
If an ID of any kind is unreachable, how is a ballot not unreachable? If you can receive a ballot, you can receive an ID.
Yeah.
So I don't even know in what situation someone could vote but never have ID. How do you live? How do you get anything? Do you have anything in your name? Do you have any proof of your identity in any situation at all? That doesn't even...
Well, and okay, so I want to float this to you, and I want you to take what Republicans would say if this happened and what Democrats would say. So we're not in an election cycle right now, right? So I'm the Secretary of State, and I'm like, you know what we're going to put on? we're going to do a massive campaign to get everybody an ID, national ID. We want to make sure that if you're here, you get a freaking ID. And all we're going to do is put who you are and what you are on this national ID. And just like Oprah, you get an ID, you get an ID. Now everyone freaking has one, right?
Yep.
It'll take a year to go through everybody. We're going to couple it with a census. We're going to make sure, since we're counting you, your name, your address. Well, do you have an ID? Oh, you don't have an ID. Cool. Well, I'm with the Census Bureau, and all you got to do is check this box right here. And everything that we just took and counted on you, you're going to get this nice ID. All you got to do then is go have your picture taken, and now you have an ID for the next election. That was a great service by the Census Bureau. Thank you for participating. What would Democrats say? What would Republicans say?
And let me preface this by saying I feel like when I say Dems and conservatives, I'm talking about the far leaning.
Okay.
Because not everybody, I'm going to hear the Dems say, oh, I'm a Dem and I wouldn't say that, and vice versa. Not everybody. But if we are looking at far right, far left leaning, let's see. I feel like anyone who doesn't like it is going to push back with, but it's corruptible. What if you had an ID, you said you didn't, and used a different name, and now you've got two IDs with two different names? Could that not happen?
Well, if you're not allowed to lie to the Census Bureau, and you can be imprisoned for that kind of fraud anyhow. So it's no different than you have nothing now. So even a fictitious one with the penalties and weights of the government of being honest and being counted.
Yeah, at least it's something.
Because census data needs to be super accurate. So the census takes it serious and compares it against things that it knew about you before. So we've got a whole lot of people that the census probably doesn't know much about you. It'll get your information into the system, and now we'll know you.
I don't see why this is a bad thing. Carter said Dems would say it's racist.
Is the census racist? I mean, that's a fair question.
They'd say, but what if they don't find people because they don't have homes or they don't have whatever, and now you're excluding them because they weren't in a place that you could find them or you wouldn't go to? Maybe you only went to voters' houses that you knew would vote a certain way.
I don't know. I think the Census Bureau counted those people because the Democrats needed them for their district. So I think we already know how to get to people that are hard to be gotten to.
Yeah.
We don't want anybody in the shadows. We want them to be part of the democracy, right?
I don't know why this would be a bad thing.
Okay. I hope they do it. Make it. So here's the top three things. Number one, there are people that live amongst us that are afraid of the government. Right? They either have warrants or they've broken laws or they're hiding out. They do not want to be officially counted. Right? And they don't trust you anyway, so they're not going to talk to you. So there's people that will drive without a license just so they won't travel.
I know someone that won't have a cell phone because they think they'll be watched.
Yes. And so those people, if you do not want to participate and you want to live in the shadows, like, I don't necessarily want to urge you to go vote, because I don't necessarily think you have interests that need to be represented. If you are hating the government, like, what would you need from the government? Don't you want to be in your cabin, cut off from the world anyway? So I'm not real concerned about that person needing representation or doing any kind of voting whatsoever. I think voting means that I'm a participant and I need represented because I am participating. I
feel like the people, though, that are choosing to live off the grid and not be watched are because they're either conducting something, they're involved with something fraudulent, they're involved with something illegal.
So you don't want them voting either. Why would you want to invite criminals to vote? Like, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
All they're going to do is vote for people who want to
help criminals.
Yeah. Like,
give them things.
Total amnesty. Everybody gets out of prison day. Like, just release them all.
You get out of prison. You get out of prison. You get out of prison.
Man, this show took a weird turn today.
I still don't think it's a bad thing.
Penny says voter ID isn't it? Oh, I already read that one. But yeah, I mean, easy to solve, but they won't do it until we get to election time, and they'll create the theater like they always do. Republicans are equally as guilty of this. If they wanted to solve it, they could solve it absolutely right now. They've got the time, the resources. and they don't have any social pressures to be or political pressures to do it.
Penny says, if people off the grid don't deserve representation, do prisoners?
No, prisoners don't deserve representation.
Do prisoners currently vote?
No, if you have a felony, if you have a felony, you don't get to vote
Ever again.
ever again. You lose your right to vote.
So if you're off the grid and you commit a felony, you're done, son.
Yeah, but if you're in prison and you was just a misdemeanor and you got some jail time on a misdemeanor, you're allowed to vote. So you can go get yourself a driver's license and get one of these census IDs if you need one.
I bet if you were a prisoner, there's documentation of you.
I think they know who you are.
Yeah.
And they can do it for
Bet you
So yeah, we
have an
we
ID.
can actually get the prisons to issue those licenses while they have you, right there.
Yeah. Hey, you're here. Let's get you an ID.
Might as well. What else you got going on today?
Yeah.
Let's do this.
No electoral college. That would solve it.
No, do not even take my electoral college away from me. It's the only fuse that is holding us back from the mob. The mob.
The mob.
Mhm.
So let's talk about that real quick if we have time.
Yeah.
The pros and cons of doing away with the electoral college.
Don't do it.
What would that look like if we did?
So just like we have districts in a state where your representative is representing your interest in the federal government, the electoral college. Okay, so let's just say everybody from the Mississippi all moved to California, right? And we had a direct election, right?
Mm-hmm.
The electoral college means that if all those people, all those Democrats congregated in California, if they all vote, the most they can win is 60 electoral votes. So having millions and millions more people do not affect the impact in who goes to, who gets elected.
So it's kind of that example I gave where, hey, we need to shift something. Let's all go here.
Exactly.
And then we'll all go here.
Yeah. So if the mob votes, it means it's direct population, direct representation. And the founders put so much of their effort in taking that tyrannical approach of the mob mentality away, right? Even the suggestion that you don't know what you're being saved from one state who might be ideologically captured in a certain way, making all the decisions for a state that's less populous. If you don't see the tyranny that they're about to experience, it's all political leaning, has nothing to do with the representation of states being able to be independent and different and be represented equal to those that are on, the West Coast. It would skew it huge.
Yeah, because I used to wonder when it comes out later, like, oh, what the popular vote was. I was like, well, that's popular. Why don't we just go with what's popular?
Right.
Nope. It was needed in 1800, not now. One person, one vote.
Nope. One vote, electoral representative. Keep it the way that it is. It works really well.
One person, one vote. Why would it matter where they are?
What do you mean?
Like, whether you go to California or then you go over here, you're voting one time. Like, would that not be the popular vote then?
Well, what they're saying is that if you get, okay, so let's just say Ohio votes Republican 60% of the population and 40% of the population. And you don't vote this time. The state of Ohio their electors are going to go for Trump. He gets the same, no matter if you vote or not, then it's going to go that way. So if you're in a highly populated Republican state and you're a Democrat, your vote is just pissed away. It's not going to make any difference. Now, there are a couple of states that equally apply its electors based on how the population voted. So if it has 10 electors and the vote was 50-50, then Trump gets 5 of them and his opponent gets the other 5, and it's split. That's not every state. There's a lot of all or nothing states where if I went to California and voted, there wouldn't be one electoral change for my vote. It would go down the same way. So what this person is saying is your vote doesn't count and matter because the electors are the ones who elect a president, not the popular vote.
Right.
Yeah. It devalues the independent vote is what it does. But we don't want the independent vote.
Why? I still don't get it.
So
Don't get it.
What don't you get?
Everybody casts their vote.
Yes.
You count them up. Whoever got more votes wins.
Yes.
That
In your
doesn't-
state, states elect the president. So you're telling your state electors who to go vote for based on who wins the votes in your state.
But what if we don't do that?
Right.
And it's just the mass, the country. You count everybody up. I don't care if you're an elected official, if you're whatever, count them all up. Who got more? Why don't we do that?
We do not want to do that. The mob.
Just too much.
Listen, if you think that election fraud is rampant right now, if
That's
you
what I'm saying.
remove
Would that
all of
be
the
too
stopgap,
big and too much and too risky, I guess, because
because states can do their own thing. And so if you have a population density in California, they are making decisions on the federal level for California because they've got all the people. If you moved all the people to California, then no matter who California went for is the one who would be president. They have all control. And if you're in Montana, you're like, well, this freaking sucks. California has 40 million people and we have 600,000 people. My vote didn't even register on the needle. But this way, at least Montana gets a small amount of electors that can then represent them federally.
So you think they still need that representation to kind of keep things?
That's what it's for. Yes.
It's too risky to just say,
Yes.
screw with our
Yes.
representation.
The elections will be wildly different. And I think the Republicans could probably run elections differently where they could still be competitive in those. They can just do the same thing that the Democrats intend and plan to do. That's what they wanted. I mean, the last, 5 elections, the popular vote winner and the electoral winner were different. This last one was the only anomaly where Trump would have won the popular vote anyway, so he would have been president. But if it went that way, it would be way different.
Penny says, eventually most people are going to move to blue states because of healthcare and education. Anyway, then their votes will be completely watered down. Red states always vote against their own interest.
We're going to dedicate tomorrow's show to this topic because I really want to talk more about the Electoral College, and there's such more stuff that we can add and why it's such a bad idea. So, yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. We'll catch you tomorrow for part 2
Thanks,
of
Carter.
the electoral and way less sarcasm tomorrow. It'll be a sarcasm-free zone.
We'll be serious.
Super serious. All right, have a good day, everybody. We'll catch you then.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow